All right, wonderful. So hi, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So yes, my name is Tammie, and I'm going to talk about the employment insurance sickness benefits. Now, there's so much information for employment insurance that I could go on for probably this whole information session just on this, but I've just tried to kind of pick the most important information. But I can't start talking about sickness benefits until I give you kind of an overview of the rest of employment insurance benefits as well. So sickness benefits falls under what's called a special benefit. So all of these benefits, including maternity and parental, compassionate care, parents of critically ill children, they all have different requirements that are, of course, that they differ from regular benefits. So when somebody thinks of employment insurance, we think a lot about when your company closes down or they lay you off temporarily. That's what most people refer to as employment insurance. When it comes to regular benefits, there are different requirements as to why you stopped working for your job, how many hours you've worked in the last year, depending on where you live. So there are different regulations for that you need to be available for and looking for work. That is all changes when it comes to special benefits. The requirement for special benefits, for all of these benefits under this category, is different. So for special benefits, you need to have worked 600 hours of insurable employment within the last 52 weeks. So that's from all employers combined. So if you've worked for more than one employer in the last year, the hours you've worked for another employer will also count. So you need that bare minimum 600 hours to qualify for sickness benefits. As well, with special benefits, you're not required to be looking for work because you're staying home, presumably taking care of yourself or taking care of a loved one. So for sickness benefits, they are for individuals who are unable to work because of sickness, injury, or quarantine. Now, when it comes to what type of sickness, what type of injury, as you can see here, you need a medical certificate, but it doesn't need to be specific. So in the cases of a lot of applications for disability, long-term disability, Canada Pension Plan disability, you are required to go into the specifics about your illness or injury or your disability. However, for sickness benefits, it's really just a straightforward medical certificate signed by your doctor or simply on a prescription pad just stating that you're unable to work for medical reasons, nothing specific, and ideally the medical note is going to tell us how long you're expected to be unable to work for. Now, if it's an indefinite amount of time, that's fine too. Ideally, your doctor would just say something to the effect of, this patient is unable to work for medical reasons for an indefinite period of time or an unknown period of time. So as I said already, you need that 600 hours to qualify for up to 15 weeks of sickness benefits. So that's 15 weeks of sickness benefits per claim. So if you were to go back to work after 15 weeks or less, and you were to accumulate the 600 hours again, and then subsequently you had to take off work for medical reasons again, you could then file an application for benefits and collect an additional 15 weeks of sickness benefits. Now, it does say here you must exhaust all your employer's sick leave credits before being eligible. So if you have paid sick leave from your employer, some sick days off, or if you've had a short-term disability plan, then you want to exhaust those first, and then you apply for employment insurance. So it says here you're able to collect sickness benefits outside Canada only if you're going to another country to receive medical treatment not readily or immediately available in Canada. In other words, if you were to leave on vacation, that's not a problem. You're just not payable during that time. So if you were to leave the country for 5 weeks, for example, and you came back, so let's say you collected 5 weeks of your 15, you came back after 5 weeks, then you could collect the remaining 10 weeks upon your return. So all claims are good for, or most claims I should say, are good for about 1 year. You have 1 year in which to collect all the benefits that you could be entitled to. So I'm just going to go back real quick to this slide here. So let's just say you've had a regular benefits claim in the last year and you went back to work for a little bit of time, but you didn't go back to work for long enough to get your 600 hours for sickness benefits. Because you've had this claim for regular benefits within that past year, you could potentially reactivate your claim and collect your sickness benefits on that same claim. So you have the ability to collect a combination of up to 50 paid weeks of employment insurance benefits within a 52-week period. So just keep that in mind. If you've opened a claim within the last year and you're unable to work for whatever reason, you may be entitled to some type of employment insurance benefit. So how to apply? You apply online anywhere with internet access. So you could do that at home. You could do it at a local Service Canada Centre. It is important that you do not delay in filing your application. So ideally, you're going to apply on the last day for which you're paid. So that's either your last day worked or your last day of your paid sick leave or your short-term disability, whatever that is. That's the very earliest you can apply. You cannot apply ahead of time. So if you know that you're going to be off work in a month, you're not able to do the application ahead of time, unfortunately. On the other end, you don't want to wait more than 4 weeks to do your application, because if you do, then your eligibility is determined in the week in which you file, rather than being automatically backdated. So you may miss out on weeks of payment, and you might not qualify at all depending on how many hours you've worked in the year from when you did the application. So shortly after applying for employment insurance, you're going to receive a benefit statement in the mail. Now that benefit statement is kind of a misnomer because it won't actually tell you what your benefits are going to be. It's something that's mailed to you automatically once you've done the application. It's automatically generated by the system to be sent to you. But what that benefit statement does have is your access code and instructions on what to do next. So we'll go over that access code and what to do in the following slides. You generally have to complete reports every 2 weeks, which we'll also talk about in a little bit as well. So normally the goal is to get you in pay within 28 days of you filing your application. Now, I have seen claims processed much faster than that. That's assuming that all of your records of employment are in. So you don't need your record of employment to do an application. And in fact, you shouldn't wait for that because it could take your employer a long time to issue the record of employment. Some employers are remiss in doing so. They don't issue it at all, or without a little bit more of encouragement to issue it. So definitely do the application right away to timestamp when your benefits should be payable. If you're having trouble getting your record of employment from your employer, then there are steps to take through Service Canada to help you get that record of employment. But you do need to make an effort to get that yourself first, because in most cases you'll be able to get that, and much faster than somebody from employment insurance is going to be able to help you get it. If you're not eligible to receive EI benefits, you're going to receive a notice within the 28-day time frame. You'll get that notice by mail. It'll tell you why it is you didn't qualify. If you disagree with that decision, then you're able to ask for reconsideration. Now, most claims require you to serve a waiting period, which also is a bit of a misnomer because that waiting period isn't how long it takes to actually process your claim. It's a period in which you're not payable for benefits. That's a 1-week waiting period. So let's say it takes 28 days for them to process your application. They're going to back pay you for 21 of those days. Now, in cases where you've received sickness benefits from your employer and you've exhausted those sickness benefits, that waiting period can be waived. So if you're covered under a sickness benefits plan through your employer and you've exhausted those benefits, they would back pay you for the whole 28 days. Now, the basic benefit rate is 55% of your average insured earnings. That's your average gross earnings, up to a maximum of $543 per week. So there's just this nifty little example here, which I won't really go over. Now, what they do is they go for an average based on your record of employment, typically. If you are somebody who works the same amount of hours and gets the same amount of pay typically every 2 weeks or whenever your pay period is, then that's all that they need is the record of employment. But if you're somebody who doesn't work on a regular basis, who possibly works 60 hours in 1 week and 20 hours in the next, one of the measures that they've implemented is calculating your benefit rate based on your highest weeks of earnings. This was effective April of 2013. So your benefits can be calculated using your highest weeks over the last year. And it depends on your region. So your EI region, the rate of unemployment in your area. The higher the rate of unemployment, the less amount of weeks you need to provide for your highest weeks. So for example, here in Vancouver, it's about 22 weeks of your best earnings that you would want to provide. And what will happen is employment insurance is going to base your benefit rate on your highest weeks of earnings in those 22 weeks rather than over the past year. So that could increase your benefit rate. When you do the application, it's going to ask you to provide those weeks on the application. If you don't have that readily available, of course, what you can do is you can continue the application without it. Your benefit rate will be based on your record of employment until you provide employment insurance with your best weeks, and then they're going to recalculate your benefit rate. Now keep in mind that any earnings paid on separation might be allocated to the beginning of your claim. So anything that's paid out in a lump sum, like severance pay or pay in lieu of notice, and there are other ones that are not on this list here, anything that's paid in a lump sum might be allocated to your claim. In other words, you may not be payable as soon as you stop working. There might be a delay in receiving a payment. So if you take a look at this example right here, if you receive severance pay that accounts for 12 weeks of salary, whether it's a lump sum payment or a weekly payment, your benefit will be delayed by 12 weeks, and then you're payable. So the time won't be taken away from that 1 year period. Like I was saying before, you have 1 year in which to collect your benefit. And that 1 year won't start until this allocation of this 12 weeks in this example here, until that's been exhausted. So you'll still have a year in which to collect whatever combination of benefits you're entitled to. It's just that your first payment, and in this case sickness benefits, is going to be delayed by 12 weeks, and potentially, if you have a 1 week waiting period, by another week as well. So we talked about that access code, what it serves for. So the first thing that's the most important is the Internet Reporting Service. So when you're receiving employment insurance sickness benefits, you need to log in to the Internet Reporting Service or call in, typically every 2 weeks, to let us know the answers to a series of 5 pretty simple questions. One being, were you out of the country during this time? Another being, did you work during this time? The next question will be, were you ready, willing, and capable of working during the period of this report? And while you're receiving sickness benefits, the answer is going to be no. You're not available for work, even if you do happen to work, which you can, although your benefits will be deducted. The amount that you make is going to be deducted dollar for dollar. Anything you earn gets taken off of your employment insurance while you're on sickness benefits. So you can work, but there's no real incentive to doing so. So after answering whether or not you're available for work, to which the answer is no, it's going to ask you if you've taken a training course during the period of this report. And then it's also going to ask you if there are any other monies that we don't already know about. Now, these monies that they refer to would be stuff that arises from employment. So if you had received anything after the fact that we didn't already know about, like severance pay or retroactive salary adjustments, whatever that may be, you would want to let us know about that. If you receive any other money, such as lottery winnings, or somebody gifted you some money, or you got an income tax return, those are the types of things that you do not need to report, as they're not monies that arose from employment. The second thing that access code is good for is to create a My Service Canada account. So if you already have a Canada Revenue Agency account, you don't need to create one of these because they're actually now linked together, so that's very useful. The Service Canada account, I'll give you a little screenshot of that. This next slide here. Okay, it's going to work. There we go. And this is where you can view your latest employment insurance claim. You can see your records of employment. So if your employer has told you they've submitted their record of employment electronically, this is where you'd view it just to make sure that they have actually done so. Sometimes employers will tell you they've submitted the record of employment to employment insurance already. But what they've done is they've actually just sent it to our record keeping department. If you're given a paper record of employment that's clearly handwritten, it's usually on a carbon copy paper, you want to bring that in or mail it in to your Service Canada Centre. This is also where, and we're going to talk about this later, you can view your Canada Pension Plan contributions, see what you would get if you were to retire early, if you were to take your pension at 60 versus 65 or 70, and also what you would get if you were to apply for Canada Pension Plan disability. Okay, and as you can see here, you can also head on over to Canada Revenue Agency's website. And then come tax time, you can print your T4s. Now that's it for sickness benefits at the moment, but I did want to cover compassionate care benefits as they're somewhat related to sickness benefits. So if you are having to take time off to take care of a family member who is gravely ill or with a significant risk of passing away, you can take time off, maximum of 26 weeks, to care for that person. So yes, you need to have accumulated that $600 in the past 52 weeks, and you need to provide medical proof, of course, that this person is at risk of passing away. So it's just something to keep in mind if you need to take care of somebody. You do have the ability to do this. It used to be 6 weeks of benefits. It's now gone up to 26 weeks.